Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending where you are. It's Cake here, and today is an awesome day. We are back at it again with another review. I'm trying to review all the games in my library, and I'm starting out with my favorites, and this one almost hit 90% on the score. I was very particular about 3 categories in this one. And if you look at this part right here where we explain to you exactly what I'm calling out in the 10 categories, let's take a look at that real quick. Layers of cake, those layers being number 1, graphics compared to other games near its time, which would be modern. Fluidity of movement, how is the movement of the game, whether it be cutscenes or whether it be like the movement of walking through doors, walking through hallways, bumping into real people, what have you, like that kind of situation. Number 3, amount of content, how much content is in this game. Number 4, story content. Is the story content up to par or is it subpar? Then number 5, which is the controversial one that we had an issue with last episode where I only called it multiplayer, and not all games have multiplayer. So this one is called Playstyle, and there's 5 points for single player and 5 points for multiplayer. And just because a game doesn't have a multiplayer doesn't mean it's going to be a 0 out of 5 for that sector, and I'll explain that later. Number 6, control comfort. How comfortable is it trying to get the controls down and understanding how to maneuver in the game? And then next we have longevity. How long can you play this game before it burns out or gets boring, in my opinion? I'll remember all of these are opinions. And then the next one is map and world design. How nice is the world, the planets, the buildings, the towns, whatnot? Like, how is that out of 10? And then next we have customization. How in depth can I get to customize things? Is it good, bad, okay? And then finally, graphical style. Now that could be realistic, cartoony. We can go with 2D side scroller graphics. It all depends, and all of that equals out to 100% score. So let's dive into the first category. All right, so now that we've established what each category is and how we're going to do it, let's take a look at each category in an in-depth explanation where I actually typed it out in an Excel sheet to where I can actually read it off, and I spent the time to actually look it up and get my thoughts together on paper. Graphics compared to other games near its time. Now, I'm comparing this to games that I think are relevant personally to the same type of stuff. So like Rainbow Six Siege, for instance, I'm comparing this one to Rainbow Six Siege because it's what I wish Rainbow Six Siege was from the start. So I gave it a 10 out of 10 because the graphics are great. They're actually better to me than Siege. The graphics compared to other games in the same generation, to me, are equal, if not less than this game personally, when it comes to blood splatter effect, body manipulation when you hit them, friendlies on how they kick doors and interact with doors and stuff like that. It's really good, in my opinion. I love it a lot. So 10 out of 10 for that one. It makes sense to me. Here's one that I think they dropped the ball on personally, and they still might be able to fix it down the road. But fluidity of movement, I gave that a 5. The main reason this gets such a low score is because of the fact that they're unable to lower their rifle whenever they're in, like, moving to a door frame or something. And so you're always flagging your friendlies, which is a no-no. And in most games, especially really good games, you can hit like control twice and it lowers their weapon, which is like Arma 3, which is such an older game to be able to do that. But you'd be able to lower your rifle when you're walking up or you have guys in front of you, so you're not flagging them with your barrel, because that's not realistic, of course. And then when you're coming up and you're like about to hit a door or you want to go through a door, the ability to not be able to sprint bothers me, because there are some times where I'm walking down a long hallway and there's no doors except for at the very end. I want to be able to sprint down that hallway, get to that door, and maintain that aggression when I'm hitting doors. And you just can't do that. It's just too slow pace. Honestly, there's a lot of dead space of me just walking up a staircase super freaking slow rather than moving up at a faster rate than you can in this game. The second low point for this game is the amount of content. Now, I actually think there's enough content in the game. Don't get me wrong. The problem we have here is for the amount of content without mods is great, but then they brought in 3 maps and some more guns and put it behind a paywall. Now, I find, especially with a game that's not fully released, that's kind of egregious, and it's honestly a very negative look for a company. I understand they need money to keep working on the game and to keep everything functioning, but at the same time, they're not at a point where DLC makes sense. They could have released more outfits instead that cost money, more customization that costs money, but hiding maps behind a paywall is kind of a no-no in my opinion, especially this early in the game. You've seen games like Call of Duty and stuff where people nitpick. They're like, remember back whenever they would release maps and you had to pay for them, and then they would separate the player base because of the map separation. And I think it's just a negative way to go about doing things these days. But then we come to story content, which I kept that at a 7 out of 10 and not a perfect 10 because the story's great. It's good. But the reason that these points were removed was because of the paywall. It kind of hinders the story processing unless you spend more money on the game, which you've already put money into the game. I do believe the consistency of the story is good, though. All the missions kind of like have connections to each other, so it does feel like an actual story, but you have to actually pay attention to that. Multiple missions refer to the same story arc, and I do love that. But I think that they need to have more cutscenes or pre-rendered footage of like the bad guys breaching the perimeter to start the situation. So you're like looking at security camera footage during the like briefings and whatnot, or maybe more audio clips. I know sometimes they have like the 911 operator call, or they have where your captain's giving you the briefing, but I think they need more footage to where it really gets you into the character. Like if the neon mission where you're busting into that nightclub, if they show them walking in and just unloading into a crowd, it gets you angry. It makes you want to go in there and mess them up, right? So they need stuff like that to give it a little bit more storytelling. And I think that's a big issue with it right now. But we get to Playstyle, and this one I've been really hard on for every single game, is single player and multiplayer, each of them worth 5 points. The single player for this is 10 out of 10. I love it. You get to command your guys, they breach the rooms, you work with them, it's sick. Multiplayer, with the right people, it's still sick. So it gives a 10 out of 10 for Playstyle, because whether you're single player or multiplayer, you can have a hell of a time on this game. Then we go to controller comfort. So control comfort, for me, I give it a 10 out of 10 based on the fact that the controls are very easy to use, very easy to tell your team what they need to do just by clicking the middle button. And then if you have a custom mouse like the MMO mouses, I have one that has 12 keys on the side, so I can actually program each of them to be a number, which they already are. And then if I'm like, hit the middle button, hit 3 for breach, 2 for bang and clear. So in 3 button strokes, I just told the team to kick a door or, break a door down, throw a flashbang, clear that room. Super simple. I can almost play the game without using my keyboard at all, except for walking. And that's super sick to me because it feels more fluid that way, which it would have been a perfect 10 for fluidity of movement if I could sprint and not flag my teammates. So that comes back to that again, is if they had the ability to do that, this would be a whole different ball game. So next we go down to longevity. How long can you play this game, or how long can this game sustain your entertainment levels? For longevity, you definitely can play this game for an indefinite amount of time. Because of the fact that the mod support and the maps people have created, there's so many maps that you can probably play this game on a new map every day for like a year. Now that's probably an exaggeration, but it's insane that you can change your characters, you can change your weapons, you can run lethal, you can run non-lethal, you can run gas, you can run flashbangs, you can run this, that, the other. There's so many opportunities to change the game, to change the opportunities that you're putting yourself into to make the game crazy. Next up, another thing that kind of goes with longevity is map and world design. For the map and world design, I give it a 10 out of 10 as well, because the maps are very detailed, very flushed out compared to other games near its style or near its, time. So if you look at it compared to other games with similar aspects, for instance, you got Rainbow Six Siege. I played the shit out of it. I was level like 300 when I quit. I played ranked. I was super into the competitive side of it, but it was hella gadgety. It was all about gadgets, and the maps were not as flushed out as they were in the trailer. If you remember the announcement trailer for Rainbow Six Siege, it was super Ready or Not looking. If you go back and watch it right now, you're like, whoa, that looks like Ready or Not, you know. And then they dumbed it down on release so they could focus more on, you know, the mechanics of the game, which I respect, sure, but that to me made the game less desirable than this game. This game is much more realistic to me. And there's other games like this, or at least one other game that I can think of, which is Ground Branch, which you can have more friendlies and you can have bigger maps to fight and whatever. But I still think this one's the better game, personally, if I had to put the two together. I also don't play with a lot of real people. I play a lot of solo, and Ground Branch to me wasn't really good for that, which that would make its score a little bit different. But we'll get to that one in a different video. So the next category, customization. Now for customization, I went ahead and gave it a 10 out of 10 because once again, you have the ability to unlock outfits. You have the ability to change the firearms, change between assault rifle, SMG, shotgun. You can change all the different kinds of pistols. You can customize each one of these weapons to be exactly what you want. You can change your uniforms. You can go lethal, less lethal, all that. You can do so much in this game that it's kind of wild at this point. I'm actually surprised at where it's at. But then we go with the last category, which to me is not really the most important one personally, but graphics style. Now, if you want to look at it this way, for graphics style, I gave it a 10 out of 10 because it's basically the most realistic SWAT style shooter that I've ever played. I wish Rainbow Six was this realistic, and I wish Rainbow Six had less gadgety crap that kind of ruined it for me. Especially the futuristic gadgets like going invisible and shit like that, or whatever they have now. I don't even know. I haven't even looked, but I do think this game's better off where it's at compared to other games in its graphical style. I think that if it would have went for cartoony or for a steampunky looking, it wouldn't have been right. You know, like you had to keep it modern and realistic to give it the best score. Now, in summary, with all that being said, I give it an 87%, which is a B, like a high B, because I do think there's room for improvements. I don't think it's A quality just because they put stuff behind paywalls. The fluidity movement's kind of off because you can't sprint, and I know for a fact that sometimes you got to boogie, you know, you got to get moving, and I think they need to change something like that. Also, no games out there these days are trying to do the whole no flagging your teammates thing. Like, it's definitely a very important thing when you're going for realism, and I definitely think it's something that should be looked into. So if you're thinking about buying this game, I definitely recommend it. It's definitely worth the money. I definitely think that you'd have a good time. Just when you're going into it, understand it's not the most realistic game on the planet right now. I think it has some room to grow, but I also wanted you to know that you're going to have to put more money into it if you want the full experience. And that's where I think it's a little rough, but because it's not a $60 game, it kind of is worth the money. I bought the DLC, I'm going to be honest with you. But I think knowing what you're getting yourself into is very important with this game, and I do think it's a good game. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you like, subscribe, do what you got to do. Just be cool about it. Let me know down below what you think of this game, and we'll catch you next time. And remember, Layers of Cake is all about personal opinion. Have a good day.